All right, thank you. Good morning, and welcome to Common Sense with Tom Schmitz. It is January 2nd, 2017, and I want to welcome everyone into the new year by saying, Happy New Year! On today's show, however, we'll be focusing on last year. That's right, we're going to discuss the year that was in Marion County, 2016. I do need to let you know, the audience to know that the views expressed on this broadcast are those of the host and guest only, and in no way reflect the thoughts of the CEP, the Power Plant Business Incubator, the City of Ocala, or Marion County. Our guest today on Common Sense with Tom Schmitz is an author and talk show host who, among his many credits, is an Emmy Award winner, and he just recently finished writing a book with Coach Steve Spurrier. That's right. He's also gave yours truly an opportunity 5.5 years ago in the radio industry. He is my mentor and my friend, Buddy Martin. Buddy and I will renew our partnership that we shared on the Voice of Ocala radio program for 5 years, and we may have a surprise or two about some future endeavors we're seeking to do. But first, this is what happened while you were sleeping. While You Were Sleeping is brought to you by the National Sports Broadcasting, your leader in equine competition broadcasting in Ocala Marion County. According to Ocala.com, the report of 3 patrons being robbed at gunpoint at a Southwest Ocala Internet Cafe Sunday night marks the second armed robbery at the same location. According to a report from the Marion County Sheriff's Office, the Gold Club Internet Cafe was hit by armed robbers around 11 p.m. Sunday. The report states an employee at the cafe told deputies she went to the back of the room. She heard a loud pop, looked over by the front door, and saw 2 men come running in. The employee locked herself in the room and activated the panic button. The suspects grabbed money from registers, took the employee's cell phone valued at $700. The employee told the deputy she believed the suspect are the same robbers from the previous robbery. We will continue to follow this story and have updates here when possible. With that, I'd now like to welcome in my guest. He is a columnist, author, and Emmy Award winner, as well as the voice of his home community, Ocala Marion County, Buddy Martin. Buddy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tom. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. As most people know, Buddy and I, for 5+ years, were the host, Buddy was, and I was the co-host of a very popular show called The Voice of Ocala, where, Buddy, we were you originally, and then both of us together became the town criers, if you would, of Marion County and Ocala.
Well, Happy New Year, first of all, but let me just say, you're talking about things of old today. Appropriate I should be here, by the way, with things of old.
I wasn't going to make that point, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah, it was a terrific 5 years we had together. And Tom, we kind of scratched it out together. We figured out that maybe what we needed in this community was more information disseminated just by the local newspaper. No offense to our friends at the Star Banner. And we were frustrated by some of the things that we did trying to get the word out. We couldn't seem to break through that ceiling to get to the radio audiences and internet audiences, whatever. So together we partnered up and decided to start the Voice of Ocala and, of course, the Sports Page Show, which we feel like we made a little mark in the community, hopefully, and maybe some folks might even remember that show.
Well, if you look back at this mural that is on the wall behind us, there's some iconic areas of Ocala here, the gazebo, the water tower, and a place right over your shoulder, near to your heart, the Marion Theater.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing I thought about today as we're discussing these show topics. Not only what is new about this year and old of last year, but what has withstood, what is still there. When you backtrack and look at the things that have been refurbished or re-energized or even saved from that standpoint, that's all a part of our community. Something is very important for me, at least. I know you, because you have a sense of history. So yeah, the Marion Theater, very special to me and my family.
Let's get into some of the topics that were the year 2016. Some good, some not so good. The first topic is one that a lot of people forget. It started in 2015, but was finally put to rest in 2016, a topic I spoke about many times on the Voice of Ocala. You had an opinion on. They finally found a place that maybe not everybody was happy with, but seems to be the right place for the 5 flags of Florida, which includes the Confederate battle flag. And it is, or actually it's the 3rd flag of the Confederacy now, and it is in front of the History Museum at the McPherson Center. No longer out by the Fallen Memorial, Officers Memorial, but it's the History Museum is where those flags are. Not the perfect ending to that. I would have liked to have seen it put in a display somewhere inside the museum, but one that seems to be adequate for our community.
I recall you got about 2 months of the shows out of that, as I recall, talking about. You talked about it a lot. And you are coached up on history, and you do know a lot about it. I feel like it was symbolic. Some of us have relatives who fought in that war. You know, if you're going to honor our people who lost their lives in some kind of conflict, there were millions and millions of people killed in battle. And certainly the Civil War is one of them. And the issue of the Confederate flag has never gone away. It's still there. And putting them all together in one place, as you mentioned a number of times, we don't need to have it flying on a square downtown. But everything should be in a museum or around the museum as something that's part of our history. You can't deny it whether you want to or not. It is part of our history. Tom is part of your history, more me because I have relatives that grew up that time. Am I proud of some of the things that happened? No, I'm not. Do I wish it didn't happen? I sure do. But it did happen. And as a historian, you appreciate the fact it was part of our culture. So yeah, I'm glad they kind of settled that. Maybe not 100%, but they kind of settled that issue.
You can't redact history, as some people would like to do. You can't do it. Speaking of history, a very historical home out in Ocala was moved in quite the display. The Ma Barker house floats across the lake. It moves from where it was now to a county park to be a museum of sorts as well, and one that I know is attached to your family.
Yeah, the Albright family was part of my family as well, as you know, and of course George III, very involved in that. Before that, his father, George Jr., and before that, George Albright Sr. was actually there when around Ridgedale when the shootout took place. And my dad was involved in it from the standpoint of the story, who wrote the newspaper. So yeah, that was quite something. I applaud, not just because they're my relatives, I applaud anybody who goes to that extent to preserve our past. And they use their imagination, as you point out, unusual to put it on a barge and see it going out across Lake Weir and put it in a place where people can still go there, because that is, remember, Tom, and you know this, that the gun battle with Ma Barker and her sons, the FBI, is still the longest gun battle in FBI history, so it's significant.
And they're going to make it an FBI museum where FBI, the plans are for the FBI to be able to bring classes from Quantico here to discuss the history of the Ma Barker house and the shootout and the tactics that were used. So one of the situations, a situation that was not a good situation for us, and we talked about it with Chief Greg Graham of the Ocala Police Department and Major Mike Balkin of the Ocala Police Department, is the influx and the large number of heroin usage and heroin deaths that came into our county in 2016.
Yeah, I was kind of musing at a Facebook post over the weekend, not fun in a funny way, but a former judge posted, he's somewhere out in like Montana, and he's posted some things you hear about even out here. And there was a bunch of arrests for synthetic drugs. We know, talking to the law enforcement officers, because we had a show.
Ask the cops.
We ought to probably think about bringing that back one day.
We might need. We got a lot of things we're thinking about bringing back.
But I mean, they educated us about this. What are the problems in our community? And that is certainly one of them.
You and I had no idea heroin was a big deal in our community.
We learned a lot about that.
No idea heroin was such a big deal, and that people were dropping dead from heroin. There were people that they were finding dead on sidewalks from overdosing of heroin.
Yeah, that's a drug of the 60s. Remember the song Going Through the Desert with
Horse with No Name?
Horse with No Name,
Right.
which is the big H there. We thought that had long ago passed.
And it seems to be back with a vengeance here. Another thing that happened over the 2016 season, we had to get a little worried about hurricanes this year. Hurricane Hermine hit the Big Bend in September. It killed a homeless man in Ocala when a tree fell on him. And then we all know the headaches Matthew caused with everything from evacuations to a cancellation of a football game that had some saying Florida Gators are scared to play the LSU Tigers.
That was a joke. But anyway, hey, but speaking of Charleston and that area, I talked to friends this weekend who were in Charleston who said there are still remnants of Charleston of Hurricane Matthew. It skirted us and missed us. It did a lot of damage north of us.
It really did, and the laughter Buddy talks about is we do a sports show called The Buddy Martin Show every afternoon from 6 to 7 on 100.1 FM, 900 AM here in Ocala, and on 1230 AM and 92.1 FM in Gainesville. And we followed this story closely with the Florida Gators and LSU, with the game being canceled because of Hurricane Matthews, and there being a hint from the LSU faithful that maybe Florida was scared to play LSU. That's why they canceled the game. How'd that work for LSU once the game was replayed?
Yeah, I wonder about that, Joe.
Played?
Exactly, and of course they went in there and got a victory, which is huge for them. And looking at it now, not to lapse into our sports mode, which we do, as you point out, every afternoon, this deprived Florida in several ways, but one of which was obviously the biggest home game of the year, gone, moved to Baton Rouge. And secondly, a win over Presbyterian, which as it turned out would have given them 10 wins for the season. But because the fact they didn't play that game, they only got to 9. It would have been back-to-back 10-win seasons. Not a huge deal, but again, I thought, as I said many times, very unfair. I can't believe that what Joe Oliva said regarding about him not wanting to lose a home venue. Hello, what about Florida Field and the Gator fans?
Well, and when people talk about we lapse into sports, but this is really an economic question too, because the visiting team stays usually at a hotel, not disclosed, Hilton in Ocala. In Ocala, the coaching staff usually eats at one of the nicer restaurants, Mark's Prime on the Square in Ocala.
Every Friday night.
There's a lot of lost revenue with LSU fans that would come in that stay in Ocala
and our friends
make
at
the trip up.
who had fans coming in for that game. HEG Hotels.
Right. So it's not just a sports loss. It was an economic hit for the city of Ocala as well. Also, the local elections, buddy. Now, you and I talked about this numerous times last year. It really started with the local city elections in the end of 2015. But it got visceral and mean and just downright ugly towards the election cycle, where one of our good friends, we will be totally honest, Daniel Owen, was locked into a dogfight of just nastiness. This election, do you remember an election, a local election, people who are friends and neighbors that it got after each other in such a mean-spirited way as this year?
I don't recall one, but I remember, Tom, you heard a story. There have been a lot of elections over the last 150 years, and there have been, I'm sure, back in the day, some nasty dogfights. This one was more visible, and there was a lot of inherent, seemed like anger and disdain. And in general, and this is your bailiwick in political science, in general, the attitude of the voter, we're just sick and tired of the whole mess. And everybody, from the local elections to the national elections, at the end said, please, no mas, I'm done. No more elections. It kind of soured us on that. So I don't know, is it a time now, Tom, where we can no longer have a gentlemanly or womanly race where actually some class distinction and some fairness would be introduced into the situation? I'm not very optimistic about that.
I was amazed at the out and out lies that some people said were, well, we just withheld the truth about some things, and they were out and out lies. And I found it appalling that people could just mail things out or say things that everyone knew was a lie and were able to just say, hey, that's part of the election cycle. Also part of the election cycle this year, the Washington elite kind of got caught with their pants down. Nobody thought in their wildest dreams, you and I even joked about it 18 months ago, that, well, what's he going to do after he gets put out of the primary? Will he go back to doing TV or whatever? We're talking about President-elect Donald Trump. 18 months ago, it was a joke. 15 months ago, it was still quite humorous. 9 months ago, it started to catch fire with some seriousness. And now, lo and behold, President-elect Donald Trump is going to be inaugurated January 20th of this year as our 45th president. Have you been able to wrap your head around that already? Have you fully grasped that yet, buddy?
Probably not, and I don't think anybody has. And here's the deal. You can talk about what you want, say what you want to, but the American public spoke, but a lot of people didn't hear them. There was faulty polling. They didn't talk to the right people, because in the very end, as you remember, there were lots of voters who came out and said, I'm a Trump person, and yet the pollsters weren't able to find out where they were. What I call the hidden audience, by the way, in both advertising and polling. There are people out there who want to influence things, who have an opinion, who don't agree with you or me, that the pollsters and the journalists totally miss. And by the way, we aren't the only ones who were surprised. Donald Trump was surprised as well.
He certainly was. And it just showed for the first time in history of elections. We have a new medium now. We know this medium exists, but now it's been shown it is a powerful tool for an electorate, and that's social media.
Donald Trump. Is this a good time to plug BuddyMartinMedia.com?
That great website where you can find Common Sense with Tom Schmitz.
Exactly, among other great
things. But social media, just Donald Trump spent half the money Hillary Clinton spent, but was able to reach just as many, if not more, voters than Hillary Clinton reached. And he did it through events like happened right here at the Southeastern Livestock Pavilion, where he had 13,000 plus people show up for a rally. But not only were 13,000 people at the Southeastern Livestock Pavilion to see Donald Trump, it was put on Facebook Live where over 150,000 people watched it live. By my count, buddy, that's almost 200,000 people that got to hear the message that day, and he was doing 2 or 3 of these events a day. It's quite possible he reached almost every bit of the 370 million people that live in this country.
Not only did he find people, he had a message that resonated, whether you like it or not. Make America great again. People want to believe in that. And I think that was one thing. Secondly, as you mentioned, he had some very smart people in his camp who understood analytics, who knew that social media was a weapon, who dug down deep and found the people who could influence things. And they had a small company out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, who figured it out the last 2 or 3 weeks. And while Hillary sort of was basking in the glow of her apparent victory, they were working. They worked up to the last minute, and they swayed this election through social media, as you point out.
Michael Moore, who is a movie maker and a self-proclaimed liberal, predicted this about 9 months ago when he said that Donald Trump and the Rust Belt were fixing to elect Donald Trump president, giving the middle finger to Washington because Washington wasn't listening to their problems of jobs, job loss, and jobs moving from that area out of this country. So a big shock there as Trump becomes the president-elect. He'll be sworn in January 20th into the office of president. The Marion Oaks Five, buddy. Remember these guys? They're the 5 deputies that were accused of beating suspect Derek Price. 4 of them pled guilty in federal court. The 5th one, Jesse Terrell, was acquitted at trial in federal court, but now faces state court charges. And that was really the beginning of a much larger controversy that involved the Marion County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, and the whole issue about whether or not Sheriff Blair saw the victim and whether he had the markings on his face, of course, wound up costing him dearly. And there's one lesson to be learned in that. You can say whatever you want to say, but if there's video evidence, you're probably not going to win that argument. And there was video evidence that he, in fact, did look at the victim. But that whole thing was disturbing because, as you point out, we lost not 1 but 2 law enforcement officials in our city and county. As you know, the story you're going to talk about in just a minute. I don't know of any other county in America, and I expect Greg Graham will come back. Hopefully that will happen. I don't know any county in America who lost their top law enforcement officers in the same year. That's unbelievable.
Lost the Marion County Sheriff Chris Blair, indicted on 2 charges, eventually reached a plea deal where he would not run for sheriff. Emory Gainey was appointed sheriff by Governor Rick Scott, so an outsider came in, albeit from Gainesville or Jacksonville, but came in to take over the sheriff's office for 6 months as Sheriff Blair was relieved of duty. And then we find out that the chief of police, so now we got the sheriff in our county, the top cop in the county, and then the top cop in the largest municipality in the county, Ocala, Chief Greg Graham, no charges. Let's be clear here. It was complaints filed, internal complaints filed against the chief, where he stepped aside and is still in where he stepped aside. He's still in that mode now until the investigation is finished. But it looks like that he may get his job back as chief of police.
Yeah, the irony of it, by the way, is that we had them, and we had a gentleman on our show many times who worked for Greg Graham, who got elected sheriff.
Billy Woods.
Exactly. And so here's Billy Woods, who's on, and we couldn't get him on our show the last 6 months because he was running for office. But congratulations to Billy Woods, the new sheriff, and job well done.
And that brings me to the last point of our conversation is the local elections and the changes in not only the county commission, the Marion County Commission, but also in the constitutional officers at the head of the school system and the sheriff's department. You talked about Billy Woods, a former Ocala police lieutenant who is now the sheriff. He's now the sheriff. He takes office today or tomorrow, I think. He's the sheriff of Marion County. And Heidi Mayer, who was a professor at College of Central Florida, and she ran against George Tomlin for superintendent of schools. A lot of people that I've talked to said that George Tomlin's fate as superintendent was sealed within 3 weeks of him winning the election when he won it 4 years ago, when he sent Dr. Green, demoted her to the principal at Fessenden Elementary, and Wally Wagner and demoted him out of the head of transportation. And a lot of people think that George Tomlin did that because they ran against him, and it was out of spite. And a lot of people, that soured them against George Tomlin. It was really an easy thing for Heidi Mayer to say, he did this, plus our education system slipped. So 2 constitutional officers for the first time in Marion County were elected during the same election. 2 new constitutional officers, plus a long stalwart of the county commission leaves to go become a state representative. Stan McLean, a real beacon for Marion County and Ocala, leaves us to go pick up the charge in the state house. I think Stan McLean did a great job here as county commissioner and will continue to do a good job for us in Tallahassee. Michelle Stone also won her election. She is now a county commissioner, as well as Jeff Gold, replacing Stan McLean was replaced by Jeff Gold as he went to Tallahassee. Michelle Stone defeated Earl Arnett, and of course the incumbent, David Moore, was reelected to his office. So a lot of bright stuff going on, buddy, for the future of Marion County. You got this sign. Let me hold this sign a minute. Let me hold this sign.
Make sure you get the right side.
You remember this show we did? The Voice of Ocala with Buddy Martin?
There it is.
You remember that show?
You know I had this, did you?
Yeah, no, I didn't know you kept that.
Yeah, I kept those as a remnant of our 5+ years at WOCA, the town criers that we were.
A lot of stuff went into that show.
I should have said Ann Tom Schmitz. But
a lot of stuff went into that show there. When I really caught the bug to get after the community was the Yankee debacle. And we're not going to get into it because, it'll just piss me off.
2 hours here.
But great times there. And here's the thing. This went away. But the thought process of our community and our love for our community and our desire to keep our community first has not went away. Is that an okay statement to say?
Yeah, I'm a little distracted right now because I'm looking at your head and I see behind you a putt just this far. Is that not good?
No. That's you'd have to mark that. That's not a given.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You'd have to mark that.
I digress. But anyway, yeah, without question, yeah, this is. I'm excited about the future, being back together here, as we are, and by the way, every day on the radio at 6 o'clock in our network. We should mention too as well.
We're on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Yeah. It's a syndicated show in 3 different states now.
Yeah, so we've got to be there.
We tricked a bunch of people, hadn't we?
I was just going to come up with a fake or factoid question for you today, but I didn't have time. I was running behind. But
trying to fool me again.
Yeah, I did, and that was a lot of fun. And the best thing about it was the time Angie Lewis and I totally punked you the first couple of weeks.
When you were giving her the answer to fake and factoid.
You couldn't figure out why she was winning 5-0.
Well, there's been some discussion by you and I. Mm-hmm. So some people have been concerned that with me doing this endeavor and you just back from writing a book and doing a new sports show on different radio, that the team was being broke up.
Well, we were, but unintentionally. I think that's important, is that you blossomed. You have your own gig, your own television now. You're a big star. I'm proud of what you've done.
I am a big guy. I am big, I'll tell you that.
Not as big as you used to be, by the way. About 60 pounds. This is something that I really thoroughly enjoyed. And maybe down the road someplace we can pick this up again. And, we got some partners out there that we're talking to. If that all comes about, should be able to maybe make this thing happen. I would love to get together with you and do this more often, but I know you're a busy man with common sense and doing the sports show at night and doing your trivia at night. Tom needs a job. He's only got 4. Give him one more.
And now I'm doing a story that I'm going to tell people I'll be telling you about later. I'm starting to do an investigative story on another job here in town.
How about that? Look out. He could be in your neighborhood, so you never know.
You never know who might
show
up.
I think it's, let's see. I mean, we can't have too much information. As we found out in the election, Tom, you can't have too much information. So maybe we can do our little thing, light the lamp, get the town crier out. Hey, pay attention. This is going on.
Folks, that's Buddy Martin, the man who 5+ years ago gave me the start in this business. He is my mentor, and I'm glad to call him my friend. Buddy, thanks so much for being here with us today. Come back again, will you?
It's been great, Tom. Really have enjoyed it. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And now to this day in history. This Day in History is brought to you by KT Entertainment. If you have a wedding reception, a birthday party, or any type of private gathering and you need musical entertainment, call KT Entertainment at 352-512-2611 or find them on the web at ktforfun.com. That's KT, the number 4, FUN.com. KT Entertainment for all your entertainment needs. On this day in history in 1959, Alaska became the 49th U.S. state. The territory had been bought in 1867 from Russia for a mere $7.2 million in what was called Seward's Folly. Boy, how Seward is fared as a smart man after all the stuff that the natural resources that Alaska has been able to afford the United States, the great state of Alaska, becoming the 49th state on this day in history back in 1959. I want to thank my guest again, Buddy Martin of The Buddy Martin Show. You can check that show out every afternoon, 6 to 7 p.m. On 100.1 FM and 900 AM right here in Ocala, or you can get it at 12:30 AM and 92.1 FM in Gainesville, or you can get it on TuneIn, on the TuneIn app at WMOP, or you can tune into floridasportstalk.fm, all those places. And you can also go read his column at buddymartinmedia.com, along with a lot of other fun things to do at buddymartinmedia.com. For Ryan Pace pushing all the for Ryan Mace, look, I want to say Pace. For Ryan Mace pushing all the buttons behind me, and for my guest, Buddy Martin, I'm Tom Schmitz saying, have a great morning, everyone.